Good Erev Shabbos to everybody. Welcome. Hope we're having a wonderful week and looking forward to a wonderful Shabbat. First, just an announcement that next Friday I will not be having the Zoom sermon. I will be in Atlanta for the Jewish National Retreat. I'll be spending almost a week there from Tuesday through Sunday. So we'll be back the week after. So next Friday, again, there will be no pre-Shabbat sermon. But there are sermons every Shabbat, not on Zoom, uh, in real time. Our shul is open and remains open. You're all welcome to join us every Shabbat at 10 a.m. and we look forward to having you. This week's portion, the portion of Re'eh. Let me read to you a verse from the portion of Re'eh. If there will be among you a needy person, from one of your brothers in one of your cities, in your land, the land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not harden your heart, you shall not close your hand from your needy brother. Rather, you shall open your hand to him, and you shall lend him sufficient for his needs, which he is lacking. Give generously to them, and do so without a grudging heart. Then because of this, the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and in everything you put your hand to. There will always be poor people in the land, and therefore I command you to open your hand towards your fellow Israelites who are poor and needy in your land. The concept of tzedakah, of give loans and give charity is so much stressed in this. And God says there's always going to be those that will need. That's the way God created the world. He will bless those that will have the ability to give and those that will need. And he wants to see this partnership. He wants you to be his messenger, to give from that which you earned to those in need. Now, the sages have always been very sensitive to every single word of the Torah. And when the Torah has a verse that seemingly has extra words, the sages will stop and ask the question, why was it necessary for the Torah to say these words? And in the verses that I just read, they focus on those words, you shall open your hand to him. The Torah already told you, don't harden your heart. The Torah tells you to give. The Torah tells you to be there to help. The Torah tells you to give the loan. The Torah tells you to give charity. Why does it have to stress the opening of your hand? You shall open your hand. If I ask you to please pass me the salt or pass something from the other side of the table, I'm not going to say, please open your hand and take the salt and pass it over to me. If I say, please pass the salt, obviously, you're going to have to open your hand to do so. Why is there this stress of the words, open your hand? And so there are two answers really that are given that really feed one into the next. The first answer really deals with the psychology of the giving of tzedakah, because many people have compassion and they feel it in their heart and they understand it in their mind. They need to give. They have enough to give. God has blessed them with the earnings to give. They have a savings account. They have investment accounts, or they have real estate, or they have stocks. They have been blessed. They're not poor. There's food on their table every single night. And they know that there are others that don't have what they have. So the reasoning is there. The desire is there. The conviction is there. There's an emotion there. I feel for that poor person. I know that poor person can use my help. And they understand the importance of charity, of giving. And yet, when it comes to that final act, the final moment, the actual giving, that's where they have the struggle. That's where they have the difficulty. So the mind says, yes, you should. The heart says, yes, you should. Everything says, yes, you should. And when it comes to that final moment to open your hand and release, there's a blockage. I just can't seem to be able to do it. I can't take something of mine and give it to someone else. So as to use the vernacular, the buck passes through the mind, and it passes through the heart, and it passes through the accountant and the secretary. But when it comes to letting it go from your hand, that's where the buck stops, and it can't seemingly get released. And the Torah is very aware of the human nature. And it cautions us early on in this discussion of charity that the final act that it's going to take, which may be the most difficult, is open your hands and let it go. Now, how does one do that? If one struggles with letting it go, how then does one do it? And here we come to the second interpretation. To understand the second interpretation, let me introduce a medrash to you. There was a great sage in the times of the Talmud. His name was Rabbi Meir. And Rabbi Meir quotes from the book of Ecclesiastics. And he says, it says there, as one came naked from his mother's womb, he will return as he came, and he will take nothing of his toil with him. So what is the good of his toiling? Very powerful, sentence to think about, the passage to think about. You came to this world naked. You're going to leave with nothing. So why so much focus? Why so much focus on working so hard if at some point you have to leave it all behind? So Rabbi Meir comments on this particular verse, and this is what he says. When one comes into this world, a baby is born, the baby's hands are clenched. The baby's hands are closed. And when the baby's hands are closed, the baby is actually sending a message subconsciously. The whole world is mine. It's all mine. I will inherit it. But when one leaves the world, they leave the world and their hands open. Their hands can't be clenched. Their hands open up. And there too, the human being subconsciously is making a statement. And the statement is, I'm taking nothing. I'm taking nothing along. Everything is left behind. So the Medrash examines here what is underlying reason for the contrast between the hands of a newborn baby and one that leaves the world. Because when the baby is born, the hands are clenched. And that's why we always, you play with the baby, you put your finger in the baby's hands and the baby squeezes closed. Those babies close their fists all the time. They clench their fists. But when one leaves the world, they leave with their hands open. So the Medrash explains that a newborn fools themselves into believing that they have the power to conquer everything. And that's the symbolization of the clenched hands. I'll take it all. I'll conquer it all. And after 120 years, when we leave this world, those same hands that came and clenched are now wide open because we have the understanding and the awareness that we take nothing at all. Leo Tolstoy wrote a short story, and his story is titled, How Much Land Does a Man Need? I'll just give it to you in brief, the cliff notes of his short story. It's a story about a greedy man. His name is Pakom. And Pakom becomes obsessed with owning land. He just wants land. And finally, he's introduced to a family that owns enormous quantities of land. And they give him this crazy offer. And they say that for a sum of 1,000 rubles, you could walk around all the area that we own. And anything that you end up surrounding by your feet, which means you walk the circumference of that land, you have one day from when the sun rises until daybreak. Anything that you then walk around is yours for 1,000 rubles. Can you imagine the deal? As much as you can walk in one given day, but you have to complete the circle around that land for 1,000 rubles is yours. So you got to get back to the starting point by the sunset of the day, or you get nothing. Pakom is all excited. This is an unbelievable deal. This is what he's been waiting for. He wants to own real estate. Now he has a chance to do it. He's excited beyond words. Wow, I'm going to take so much land because I'm in good shape and I could walk a great distance in one given day. And so he's there. The moment the sun rises, he's there and he's running and he's running and he's running and he's pushing himself another mile, another mile. I'm going to own all of this land. I'm going to own all this land. And at some point he realizes the sun's about to set. And oy vey, if I don't get back to the finish line and make the circle around the land, I get nothing. I've gone too far. And he begins to run with everything he has to get back to the finish line. And as he finally makes it back and the finish line is near and the sun's about to set, He drops dead from exhaustion, and he ends up with nothing. And he gets buried in a small little plot of land, some 5 foot, 6 foot piece of land by 2 feet. And that's all he earned for that day. It's a short, simple story, but the message of the story is you spend your whole life running and running and running and running and toiling to acquire. But what will you take with you? Says the Torah, don't close your hand from your needy brother. Open your hand. Don't wait until you leave this world to open your hand. Open your hand now. Poseach tiftach. Perhaps what the Torah is really telling us is Poseach tiftach, is it wants us to think about the time. The day will come that you will leave this world with open hands. That moment will eventually come after 120 years, but think about it now. Think about it when this individual is in need and you have this difficulty letting go. Understand that after 120 years, you're not taking it with you. All you take with you are your good deeds, the mitzvot that you did, the kindness that you did. That you take with you, that's eternal, that goes with you to the heavenly world. So the more we think about the opening of the hands, the time when we will all open our hands, the more it will help us to open our hands when that time comes that someone's in need. I've told this story before. Several years ago, there was a wealthy individual who passed away, and the man reportedly left behind an estate of $1 billion. But he was also an extremely charitable man all his life. Schools and hospitals bear his name. He gave and he gave and he gave. And he was very matzliach. He was very successful in business. His name is one that's known by all, one of the great philanthropists of our times. He was a religious Jew as well. And as the story goes, he left behind two wills. And he had clear instructions. The first will was to be opened as soon as he passed away. The second will was to be opened 30 days later. Those were the instructions. And so as soon as he passes away, the family know the instructions. They opened the first will as their father had made them promise that they would. And in his first will, he has this very strange request. He asks that he be buried wearing a particular pair of socks that he liked. And he tells his children where in his dresser he put these socks. It's in this particular drawer. It's on the right side. It's in a plastic bag. I've put it there so that when the time came that I was to be buried, please make sure I'm buried wearing these socks. Now, it's a rather strange request, but that's what he asked. So the family immediately takes the socks and they bring it to the Chevra Kadisha, to the Jewish Burial Society, saying, this was our father's instructions. He wants to be buried wearing these socks. The Chevra Kadisha say, but certainly you know that within Jewish law, you're not buried with any socks. You're buried barefoot. You don't wear socks in the coffin. The children say, but this is our father's request. They say, we don't know what to do. I mean, we know who your father was and we know how great he was and how charitable he was, but what he's asking for is not something we can do. So the children say there has to be some authority that can allow this. Well, the Chevra Kadisha gets on the phone. They start calling every leading rabbinic authority. They call the leading authorities in Jerusalem, anywhere in the world. And they immediately have a conference call, all the rabbinic authorities that they can possibly get together. And there is no heter that they can find. There is nothing that they can find that would allow for this exception. So this is what they say to the children. We understand that your father did leave this instruction in his will, and for whatever reason, he just didn't know of this law. But right now, your father's soul is in the heavenly world. And in the heavenly world, he knows all of Torah. And in that place, he now knows of this law. And certainly, he wouldn't want his children to violate a Torah law when his soul itself right now understands the law. And so your father will forgive you for not following his final instruction. And we're just going to have to insist that he's not buried with his socks. But your father will forgive you because he now knows the truth. There was nothing they can do to not have Their father buried by the Chevra Kadisha was not something that they would consider at all. They were religious Jews, observant Jews. Their father always respected what a Rav would say, so they were going to go along with it, but they were a bit heartbroken that this first will, and that's all he asked for, wasn't able to be kept. 30 days go by. They opened the second will. And this is what the opening paragraph says. My dear children, by now, you would have buried me without my socks. I just wanted you to truly understand that a man can have $1 billion, but in the end, he can't even take along one pair of socks with him. That's the message I wanted you to know about when I passed from this world. So the money that I'm leaving over to you, it's temporary. Use it wisely. Be engaged in your families, be engaged in your communities, and be charitable. Give it out, distribute it to those that are in need, care for others. If you've been blessed, share those blessings with others. The Torah in this week's portion is talking to us, to each and every single one of us, whatever level that we may be on financially. There is always someone that needs your help. How many favors, how many acts of kindness can you do every single day? Wherever you turn, there are people that could use your kindness. And it's not just writing of a check. It's being there for someone. It's being friendly with someone. It's helping someone. Every opportunity that God gives us is an opportunity for us to share that love and to give. This Shabbos is Shabbos Mavorchim. We're going to bless the new month. Shabbos is actually Erev Rosh Chodesh, and Rosh Chodesh is Sunday and Monday. And the month that we're blessing is the month of Elul. It's the month before Rosh Hashanah. It's a very powerful month, but that word Elul also has the acronym Ish L'Reyehu Umatanos La'avyonim. You want to know how to prepare yourself for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Ish L'Reyehu. Be there with love for one another. Umatanos La'avyonim, and give gifts to the poor. That's the ultimate way that we get ready for our own spiritual service of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I want to wish everyone a good Shabbos, a good month, a good year, a happy new year, a sweet new year, a healthy new year. We are open for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We have booked the Sheraton Hotel. If you'd like to join us, and we would love for you to join us, please go on our website, chabadconejo.com/HH, which stands for High Holidays, 2021, which is this year, HH 2021, and you're able to select your own seat. So if you want to sit far away from everybody, pick a seat in the bleachers. If you want the box seats, you can pick a box seat. You can go on the map and pick any seat you want, but we really would like to celebrate together for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur this year. All the best to you. Take care.